Hello again. I'm back. Took a little bit, but I was doing some thinking. I figured maybe, hey, it'd just be good to talk to some people and get my story out there. Some people who might, know where I'm coming from, and or maybe you know somebody who knows somebody that this happened to, and just be good to build a community if we can. So I wanted to, make my next video. So I left off last time with Michael being taken to the hospital. He, um, the uh, the firemen came first, and they came in and they were working on him, and they told me to leave the room, and I went and stood outside with the police officers that had arrived by then, and the ambulance were right behind them. So we we're waiting on Mike to be brought out. They brought him out and they put him in the back of the ambulance. And I went in to grab some shoes. I was shoeless. I went in to grab some shoes and my keys and my purse so I could go with the ambulance. And they they told me he's talking again, because at that point Mike was, he was nonverbal at that point. When I called the police and the whole time them coming to pick him up and everything, he was nonverbal. He wasn't speaking. He was completely unable to speak. And the only sign of life that he truly showed that he was still there was just like this one tear that rolled down his face. I remember that. And so they called me to the ambulance and they were like, he's speaking again. And there's this one particular hospital here that that he did not want to go to. It has a lot to do with his mother passing at that same hospital, but he just didn't want to go there. And I was like, listen, Mike, these people, they know what they're talking about. They know that, which hospitals are the best hospitals to go to for certain things. So I said, let's get you to a hospital. So they took him and they were like, okay, don't speed behind us, take your time, get there. Don't go the same speed we're going. I was like telling water not to be wet. So I went on ahead and I'd already called my sister so she could come and take care of my girls while we were, on our way to the hospital. I didn't wait for her to get there. At the time, my oldest was 16, 15, 15. And, it was late at night and they were all still asleep. And so I, um, I waited on the ambulance to pull out. I went behind them. And the police stayed at my home until my sister arrived with my children. And I was on the highway behind that man. And of course, the ambulance got there to the hospital before I did. This was right when COVID was just, it was kicking up. It was pretty bad at this point. And so we get to the hospital and I couldn't get in the hospital. I had to wait outside the hospital. And I had to wait until they got him in. They assessed him. And there's this drug. I forget the name of this drug. I'll put the name of it after I look into it, but I forget the name of this drug. But there's this drug that they give to stroke victims to help bust up the blood clots, reduce the size of them, I guess, disintegrate them. So it doesn't do any more damage to the brain. And they called me on the phone. They said, you were going to we need to give him this drug so that we could try to, lessen the effects of the stroke. And, with strokes, time is brain. Time is brain. And so I said, of course, give it to him, do what you got to do. And so they said, okay, we'll call you right back. We can let you in. They called me back about 20 minutes later. And he said, okay, you can come on in. So I got in there, and it's hard to describe how he looked. Like, at this point, I didn't know it. I had no idea. And when I tell you I had no idea, I had no idea. But at this point, Michael was already gone. Like, the Michael I knew, the Michael I married, the Michael I fell in love with, he was gone. He was gone. I didn't know. But I walked in, and he kind of looked up at me and gave me a little smile. And I said, "You all right? You okay?" And he wasn't speaking. He was back to not speaking. And he was just not very coherent, just not really there. And so the doctors came in shortly after. I mean, like, not even a minute, not even a whole minute. And they said, well, we need to go in and do surgery. He has 2 blood clots to the brain, and we need to try to remove them so we can reduce the effects. And I said, okay, do what you got to do. And they took him into surgery, and they they put me in this little waiting area, and I was there by myself. Now, mind you, now, like I said before, his mother had already passed 6 months after we got married. My mom had passed by then. She had recently passed. My mother had passed a year and 3 months when Mike had a stroke, about a year and 3 months. And so, and my father, my father had passed about 5 years before that, before my mother passed. So there was no one. There was no one outside of my younger sister. There was no one for me to call, at this point. I called my sister, or excuse me, she called me to check on and see what was going on. And I remember telling her, he has 2 blood clots, Angel. You know, and I used to fuss at Michael all the time, take your medicine. I'm a huge advocate of taking care of yourself, especially men. For some reason, I don't know what it is, but and it's getting better. I'm not fussing at y'all, because we all human. It is getting better. The more men I talk to, the more they're like, "Oh, I go for my checkups." You know what I'm saying? So yeah, but take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. And if you are in this world and you have anybody that you mean something to, go see about yourself, man. Go see about yourself, because they love you. And so why not make sure you're your best you, you know? But he would never go, and when he did go, it was because something was hurting, or his blood pressure had gotten so astronomical to the point where, he couldn't take it anymore. The headaches were getting too bad, and he had to go get some more medicine. And this is not me not trying to make sure he had his medicine or anything. Michael was just stubborn. He was stubborn, and he was a man's man. When I met Michael, it was, oh gosh, I met a real man. I remember telling my mom, I was like, that's a man, mama, because he just was. And one of those real alpha males. But there are some drawbacks to that. There just are, especially if they're a certain way and stubborn and don't want to listen to reason, not even like just the woman in your life, but not to reason, and so he didn't go to his appointments like he should. He didn't take his medication like he should, and he had a real recipe brewing for a stroke. His mother passed away due to blood clots. He, was a heavy drinker, you know what I'm saying? And um it was a lot. So I was in the waiting room, and I called my sister. Sorry, she called me. And we were talking about everything, as sisters do. And I was telling her, how the evening started. And we were just praying. I was just praying. Because you got to understand, I just lost my mother I had lost my father. It took him about a year to pass away. Once he told me he had the cancer, it took him a year to pass. And that was just heartbreaking. And then my mother, she died instantly, like just, very out of the blue. She had congested heart failure, don't get me wrong. So we knew that there was an illness, but my mom just, it's my mom, so we never saw any of that coming. But with all that loss, God knows I did not want to lose my husband. You know, I couldn't even fathom losing my husband. So me being a praying person, that's all I started to do. I just prayed and 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 prayed. And then the nurse came in and she gave me the information. She said, "Well, we tried to get both blood clots, but we couldn't. We got one, but they were doing more damage trying to get the other. So they stopped. And it was going to have to absorb naturally." That means more damage, right? Okay. All right. I said, "Well, how is he? Can I see him?" And they said, "Well, he just had brain surgery. Um, you can't see him right now. It'd be best if you go and head home and try to get some rest." Really? Try to get some rest. Okay. So I drive back home and I'm praying. I'm praying and I'm praying and I'm praying some more. And the one thing I remember praying for was, "God, please don't take my husband like you took my father." You know, because I don't know, if you're a daddy's girl or if you know a daddy's girl, but it's a different relationship, like between a father and a girl. If you have a daughter, if you have a daughter, love your daughter, because it is the best relationship that she will have with a man. The best. No one is going to love her the way you love her. And you need to remember that. No man, there's not another man on this earth that will love her the way you love her, because she comes from you, she's fit to you. So, you know her in ways that no other man will get a chance to know her. You will be able to love her and care for her in ways that no other man will be able to do. And so that's a bond that just is not unbreakable, and it was real hard when it was broken. And so losing Michael was just like, oh God, no, can't do that. Whatever the situation is, it'll just be it. So I go home. I go home to an empty house because my kids are with my sister. The house is empty. It's quiet, and my bed is destroyed, because they snatched my sheets. They snatched my new sheets. He was naked. If you watch the first video, he was naked. But yeah, so I called. It was early in the morning by this time. It was like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. I called his stepfather. I called his siblings, who at the time were all across the U.S. Um, he had one sibling here in Savannah, but it was like having no siblings here in where we are. So, uh, truth is true. But I called everybody who I knew cared about him, that I had a number for. And I cried a little bit more, and I cried myself to sleep. And I woke up the next day and just in disbelief. disbelief as to what just happened to me and my family, and having no clue as to what was ahead. None at all. None at all. Anyway, wow, it was fun. Yeah, come back for part 3. Yeah.